Welcome to week 171, our Memorian in the house. And guess what? I was wrong last week. And so many of you, I don't know why you weren't so comfortable putting it in the comments on the video, but private message through Instagram, mostly telling me how wrong I was and how much you really loved that. And that you were hoping for the market to start crashing now. And the moment somebody starts going on about how, they're waiting for the market to crash, it immediately, you have to discount that kind of whatever comes after that, because they clearly don't understand what has to happen for a market to crash. If you think you can take advantage of a market crash, somehow you're going to be insulated from all the economic turmoil that is causing this market crash. So unless you're sitting on piles of cash, it's not something anybody should really hope for. And it's stupid to hope for that kind of, to wish that on so many people here in Toronto that rely on their homes to, get them towards retirement. But anyway, that's a whole different point. I was wrong about the interest rate hike last week. You know what? And I'm sometimes wrong, but most of the time, if you've been following this blog, I've been pretty good at spotting trends before they actually became a mainstream thing. So, you know what? It happens. And, looking at the bigger picture, I probably should have seen this versus, sticking to my not going to increase message. Considering what's happening globally, I could see that this is a good preemptive increase ahead of what may be coming. So, and what I mean by what may be coming is, we go back a year to when rates started to increase. So at that time, I was very strongly opinionated about the fact that it was too late. It should have happened when inflation was becoming a problem months before that. And it wasn't a secret. These numbers were there, but it just wasn't being taken seriously. So I think the rates should have started increasing sooner than March. However, they started in March. And I guess the same rationale can be applied to today. Sure, if you look at what I was saying, okay, there was 1 month of rates, of inflation increasing month over month for the first time in 10 months. And I understand that being enough of a trigger to increase the rates. I was hoping they would, wait for another month of stats to come out before rates were actually increased. But in hindsight, it actually seems like a good move to do it now versus waiting for it to be too late. So I'm not going to hate on that decision. But I'm going to take some comfort in the fact that I'm not the only guy who is out there saying that it's going to be this. So there are a lot of economists that I respect that also were on team, no, it's not going to happen. So anyway, long story short, it was increased, and it's going to be something that might happen again in July. But we'll talk about July as we get closer to that announcement date. So anyway, if you read through the monetary policy, or if you read through the actual press release of the increase, there's some very strong wording in there that does indicate that there will be some further rate increases to do whatever is possible to help manage some of this inflation that we're experiencing still. And remember, we have some issues that are not yet showing up in our pocketbooks. I'm not yet sure how the shortage of workers in Florida is going to affect the price of fresh fruits and vegetables here and in the States over the coming months. That is something that needs to be paid attention to and acknowledged. And we're already seeing more expensive prices at the gas pumps, but that happens every summer anyway. So is that because of the reduction in the amount of oil that's being produced as of May the 1st? Or is that a natural kind of market at play where, people tend to move around more in the summer months, and so they, people capitalize on that extra use and charge more for gas? So I don't know exactly what's in play there, but things are certainly not getting cheaper. And, mortgage interest, cost to carry a mortgage is increasing, which is resulting in some rents being pushed up. But listen, just because the landlord's cost has increased doesn't mean that automatically means they can jack rent and people will just pay it. It does allow landlords to, motivates landlords as a collective, whether they're actually in collusion or not. Well, they're not. There are a number of individual landlords, but if a bunch of landlords are experiencing this pressure and pricing their rentals accordingly, then that becomes the only kind of product available, setting the market for that sort of thing. So it does affect rental prices in a way, But there comes a point where it just doesn't make sense for somebody to pay that kind of money, and then they just don't. That's just how markets work. So there is upward pressure on a lot of things, and stuff is not getting cheaper anytime soon, which means that, like, I don't know who had any sort of vision that thought that rates would come down in 2023. Even I, the most optimistic guy on the planet, was very clear from the end of 2022 that we were not going to be looking at any rate decreases in 2023, and I assumed that there was going to be a relatively slow market, as did most other people. So if anybody assumed that there'd be a rate drop in 2023, like, hopefully you're off of that by now, because now it's very, very certain that 2023 will be a year of maybe one more increase after this, maybe two. But 2024 onward is what we're all really looking at, and it's what we were really talking about from the beginning in terms of some sort of recovery mode. But again, I don't even want to look that far right now, because it really doesn't matter. Long term, 5, 6, 7, 8 years from now, whatever you're holding today will be worth more. It's very hard to argue with that. Rates will come down at some point, but not down to free money territory like it was throughout COVID, which was an unprecedented circumstance that resulted in what we're feeling right now. But at the same time, you could be on whatever side of the coin you're on. You can hate the liberals, you can hate the conservatives, you can hate whoever you want, and maybe you think your team would have played this whole thing differently. But at the end of the day, that's all a fun story. But if you're falling for the whole Pierre Poilievre BS when he stands up there and spouting off sound bites about affordability under Justin Trudeau, like, you're really not that dumb to believe these like sound bites that come out of that man's mouth. I hope not, anyway. But there's a lot of BS going on during Parliament that is it's infuriating for me, because it's not real. There's no real plan. You can't just tackle affordability. You can't just make stuff affordable. They're all talking about the wrong things, and it's so frustrating. And speaking of politics, who's your person in the mayoral election in Toronto? For me, I think they're all the same kind of puppet BS. Like, from Olivia Chow to Brad Bradford to Mitzi, I can't remember her last name, to whoever else is in the running here. But honestly, the main standout for me is Chloe Brown. And if Chloe Brown and I were to talk, I'm sure we would not see eye to eye on some things, but we see eye to eye on a lot of things that nobody else is talking about. And that's building affordable homes for people that support the things we interact with every single day. All of the day-to-day people that work in the stores we shop at, in the hospitals we rely on, all of these people are having a major struggle finding homes near their work. And we have so much underutilized land above police stations, ambulance stations or EMS stations, whatever they're called, subway stations, all of this like municipally, provincially, federally owned lands that exist in Toronto should be immediately zoned for massive density and mostly allow for affordable and subsidized housing for people that support the communities we live in every single day. That's how, in my opinion, you tackle affordability. And she's the only one that's really saying things that make sense to me. You've got other whack jobs like Chris Sky and George Mammoliti that have zero clue what's really going on in the world. They just love attention, and grifter type people, like worst humans on the planet, those people like that. But Chloe Brown is somebody to watch, if not in this mayoral election, in Toronto politics down the road. She is a fierce competitor who takes no BS and is not afraid to go up against these career politicians that don't really seem to understand what needs to happen. But what they do understand, that I think Chloe Brown doesn't understand, is it's not just as easy to push your ideas through. You have to go through a lot of BS to make things happen, which I think new politicians like Chloe Brown would have a lot of trouble with. But hopefully, if she's surrounded with the right crew, they can help her with that. And I really, really wish she gets like a ton of votes, because I know she's getting a lot of great attention. And if anybody who watches this is responsible for putting debates together, you've got to include her in all of the debates. The way she handled herself at the round table with Brad Bradford, Olivia Chow, Mitzi, and there was somebody else at the table. She literally called them out for being like school children who couldn't just have a regular conversation. It was beautiful to watch while these other people just talked over each other and weren't making any sense and weren't listening. She's the only candidate that seems to listen and then actually respond appropriately. But anyway, this isn't like a campaign video for Chloe Brown, but I just love that woman so much, and I love everything that she's doing. And she is the representation for areas like Scarborough that really is, since I moved to Scarborough 2 years ago, I didn't realize how much attention other parts of the city get over Scarborough. But now there will be attention in Scarborough inevitably, because as we talked about in the last video, Kingston Road is where to put your money right now, deep into Scarborough. And that is where there is a lot of development happening right now. There's a lot of attention there right now. There's a lot to pay attention to in Scarborough in the coming years. So you can fight as hard as you want to get some attention in Scarborough, from hospitals to road repairs and stuff like that. But that inevitably will have to be taken care of as more development comes, as more people come, as more tax revenue is generated out of Scarborough and area. There's going to have to be a lot more attention and care, which is really awesome. So it's a perfect time for somebody like Chloe Brown to be out there doing what she's doing. So back to the Toronto market, condo supply is becoming a bit of an issue right now. Not yet. You won't feel it yet as a buyer, because I feel like there's still some quality inventory lacking. But over the past 3 weeks, we've gone up almost 21% in supply and down almost 21% in sales this past week. So condo supply is piling on and sales seem to be dropping off a little bit. So we're kind of reaching that point where there will be enough listings to meet buyer demand. There already is enough listings to meet buyer demand, but even more so over the coming weeks. So we'll see how that plays out. But if you're a seller right now, I would probably hold off on going to market if you don't have to. But depends on where your building is. If you have a house, houses are still doing okay, but sometimes we're not seeing those big offers on offer day like we had hoped. Like I talked about our listing last week that I think sold for a little less than what I would hope for. And we're seeing that on a number of other listings that we have. But again, I don't want to have this tunnel vision on just our experience. Looking across the board, it seems to be the case with a lot of other listings too. And we've got a listing coming out in Cabbagetown next week that should be pretty special actually. So we should do okay with that. So we'll report back and let you know how that goes. But if you're a seller right now, I'd probably just hold on. We're probably going to be heading into that lull right now over the next couple of weeks. And then if there's another rate hike in July, that should probably kill the rest of the summer market into early fall. So if you're getting ready to sell your place, you might want to just hang on right now and consider doing it deeper into the fall as we head into winter, when I think that enough people will get the idea and listing supply should be depleted enough at that time. Again, unless people start to panic, because right now we're getting to the point where we have a lot of people that are reaching that point where payments are changing, even if you're on a fixed variable mortgage, fixed payment variable, meaning your payments don't change as the rate change. Because remember, not all variable mortgages adjust payments as the rate changes. That's something that people need to really understand. There's a huge portion of variable rate mortgages that originate from the big banks that do not change payments. My mortgage payment has not changed since 2021 when I locked in our new mortgage. My interest rate has obviously changed, and the majority of my payment is going to interest right now, but my payments have not changed. So there's a lot of people that have been financially unaffected by any of these rates. That's why you're not seeing a ton of defaults. But now, again, another one of these talking points by just absolute morons like Pierre Poilievre, who are going on about how there are going to be a whole bunch of mortgages, 38% of the mortgages in existence are going to experience a 38% increase in the number of, in their monthly mortgage payment, which is not really true completely, because, well, first of all, it's not a now thing. This is a 2026 thing, assuming that no rates change from now until 2026. Let me ask you this. what's the likelihood of rates going up or staying where they are today for the next 3 years? Look, I guess there's a chance, but probably not likely. So, it's just one of those talking points that really sound great. Like, oh my God, okay, he's going to save us from that? Cool. But he's also the guy that's saying that banks shouldn't be, bailing people out at the same time. So, I don't even know. I'm kind of confused by the messaging. So, anyway, when you hear a talking point like that, it's really important to really dig deeper and understand when, why, who, and how many people are going to be affected by this situation. And we're talking 2026 onward, as a lot of the mortgages that he's referencing originated in 2021, assuming they're on a 5-year term, will be up for renewal in 2026. And there's no doubt the rate will probably be higher in 2026 than it was in 2021. That's almost a given. But it's not likely going to be where it is today. It will be lower than today, and that's a blessing right there. So anyway, we'll see how that all plays out down the road. But so many talking points, so much BS, so many people with opinions that don't really understand what's happening out there. So long story short, if you're a seller, you need to chill for a moment, wait for the market to kind of do its thing again for you to take advantage of it. If you're a buyer right now, you might be seeing some more options for you in condos and houses. You may or may not be in fierce competition depending on how desirable your home is. And again, we're talking North Riverdale. That area just reacts differently than everything else. If you're a North Riverdale buyer, you're likely always going to be in competition no matter what the market is doing. So you got to be prepared. There's really no deals or discounts in North Riverdale ever. The odd time maybe, but you have to move quickly. But everywhere else, like Leslieville, Roncy, High Park, Danforth area, the beaches, there are more listings now, and some are going into competition and some aren't. Outside of those neighborhoods, way up along Kingston Road, here's an example of a great spot that I have right now coming to market on the 26th. It's a 60-foot by 260-foot lot backing onto the Rouge, onto the ravine, right by the Rouge River where all the salmon spawn every year. It's a beautiful site. So we're putting that on the market on the 26th. It hasn't been touched since the 80s, needs a full renovation. But also the awesome story is the next door neighbor is willing to sell. So basically, if you can get both of those properties, you've got 110 feet of frontage, 236 feet backing onto a ravine. I'm thinking townhouse project or one mega mansion. It's right across from my house. So you know what? Do what you want across there. You got my full support. I'm hoping for townhomes to kind of add 6 to 8 townhomes on that site would be sick. So anyway, that's what I'm talking about. Hopefully you guys are picking up what I'm putting down. Real Estate Raccoons are out. I will see you next week. Week 171 is done. Let's go.